One of the major tenets of whiteness is really this incapacity to deal with failure. And so oftentimes and not, we even see this embodied in white supremacists, in the idea that we cannot admit that failure exists. Oftentimes than not, this shows up in denying the failure, covering up the failure, and in some instances, double down on the rightness of the failure at hand. And we can actually see this in real time when we look at some of the reporting around the school shooting, the horrific violence that happened in Uvalde, Texas of late. Everyone wants to try to justify wrong calls here and minimize the impact of the failure. And I would just say that this is so much more than just simple government propaganda or bureaucratic power struggles, right? It is the inhumane impacts, all right, of when whiteness centers itself in a way that says, we didn't screw the pooch here. We didn't make the wrong call here. We were justified in the actions we made, even if those actions had consequences that go beyond reason and social norms. So when we start talking about the need to divest from whiteness, more specifically, we really need to realize that whiteness keeps us from owning our shortcomings. It keeps us from acknowledging the failures. And sometimes it even makes us double down on the things that we should be deeply apologetic about, things that we should have a collective remorse about, and in some instances, things that we should be deeply grieved by. Whiteness says we can't admit the failure. We have to maintain the falsity of a perfection that has never existed and will never exist. And so for those who are looking for ways to divest from whiteness, you need the ability to be able to rightfully see a failure, move through the low frequency emotions of guilt and shame that will keep you from naming a failure what a failure actually is. And you have to be able to have some space to negotiate what failure means in our lives. But more importantly, what failure can teach us, how it can empower us, how it can grow us in compassion, and how it can really inspire us to see the world from a viewpoint that centers the least protected in our societies, instead of empowering the people who make the mistakes that cause us all so much collective harm.